If somebody had hurt you in a way that changed your life forever, what would you do? If your world was completely shattered by another person's actions, how how would you respond? Well, my name's John Ormandy, and I was once in prison. My world was completely shattered. I was locked in a cell for 23 hours a day, reading Dear John letters telling me that my marriage was over, couldn't hug my children. It was the lowest point of my life. It really was. And yet today I work with organizations like local charities, businesses, universities, helping men and women find a way back into society after leaving prison. In fact, Nottingham University have just invited me to do a societal impact report. But how does that happen? How does somebody that's lost everything find a way back? Well, that's what this is about. It's about the freedom you can gain by letting go. And it all started for me when I was 2. My mum left. My dad wasn't much of a father, and I was raised by my grandmother. And she gave me everything I could probably ever want and more. But you still cling to the loss of not having a mum. You see your friends being picked up at the school gates by their mums, or sports days, they're on the front row, birthday parties, and you're thinking, I want that. Like, why wasn't I good enough for that? And it took a long time to realize that I was clinging on to a fantasy of something that I couldn't get. When all I had to do was just let go of that fantasy and realize the reality that I already had it. And it was sitting there in the form of my grandmother. And that is just the tip, that lesson that I was learning. I didn't realize how much I was going to need it later on. Fast forward, and I find myself in prison. Yep, reading Dear John letters, not being able to hug my kids. And just 4 months into that sentence, I get shipped out to another prison for a court appearance. And it was there, HMP Leeds, when I was attacked. And it was brutal. Broken bones, fractured ribs, fear, anger. And all I'm thinking is just, what is going on? Fast forward into May 2023, and I find myself back in the same prison for another court appearance. It never ends. And standing right in front of me was the same guy who attacked me. Right there. And when I say right there, he was at least 6'4". He was huge. But something had changed. You see, this time around, he was more fragile. He was more afraid of me than I was of him. And there's an irony, because at one stage we were asked to work side by side on a prison information desk. My heart was beating, let me tell you. It was pounding. My palms were sweaty. My mind was racing. It was out of control. But the worst part of this was the silence between us. It was heavy, really heavy, toxic, uncomfortable silence. And it was that moment where I realized that nothing about this sentence or this moment where I was living was ever going to change. Nothing was changing. So I had to make a decision, and it was a split decision. And that decision was me for turn to him with bravery and say, I forgive you. Can we just drop this? Because I'm telling you now, this silence was worse than anything you ever did. And it was. And I still sat there for an extra 10 minutes, heart racing. I've just stood up to this guy and said, I'm sorry. And I'm telling him, it's over. It took him 10 minutes. And eventually, he put his hand on my knee and looked at me and said, do you fancy some tea and toast? And that was it. It was over. By letting go of that anger and that pain, made room for healing. I didn't realize that it had a name. This, what had just happened, but it does. And it's called restorative justice. And restorative justice is where you bring somebody that's caused the pain and somebody that was hurt, and you bring them together and they reconcile and they work it out and you move forward. You know, a UK government study says that restorative justice reduces reoffending by 14%. That's a lot, right? That's huge. 8 out of 10 people that take part in this say that they became better people, better partners to their wives, better fathers, better people in the society and communities. Now, that's powerful. I want to be part of that. It cost me something. It cost me my armor. It cost me vulnerability. And I needed that. Very much so. Now, back over now in my resettlement prison, I didn't realize that letting go wasn't just about letting go of pain. Letting go was about realizing that I had more to give. I thought I didn't have anything else. And letting go of the thought that I had nothing left, that was eating up at me. You see, I gained more energy, and that energy had to go somewhere, and it went into service. And when enough energy goes into service, service cannot be contained. Yeah. I started to help people that couldn't read or write. I was reading for them, and then I was writing legal letters. I was writing letters to their children, and I was writing letters to their partners. Love letters. I had so many girlfriends in prison. It was outrageous. Let me tell you that. But this energy which went into service created the ripple effect. And those ripples, they rarely stay small. They just keep expanding and moving and moving and moving. Something that happened today to my children, if somebody taken a child's life of mine or hurt them in a way that I can't really describe right now, the pain would be excruciating. I can't even describe how I would feel. Would I be able to forgive? I don't know. Is forgiveness possible with something like that? I don't know. But for me, understanding is what I would need to find, because understanding leads to the path of peace. Forgiving or letting go, it's not a weakness. It's not. It's not something that we should be shying away from. Letting go leads to personal growth. It leads to healing and makes space for something bigger. That's what it did for me. It made space. And I'm really proud of that, because it's been a very, very dark and toxic place. But that's about me. What are you holding on to? What regret or old hurt or whatever it is, what pain are you holding on to that is so heavy that You would be able to achieve something so magical and special if you just learn to let go. Because I'm telling you, there's something bigger waiting. Doors will be opened if you can just learn to let go. So I'm going to leave you with just this one final point. And what life are you prepared to lead and look for if you just finally let go? Thank you.